Hello, hello. My name is Annalisa Hunter, and I'm the pastor here at Swamico United Methodist Church. And we are working our way through a daily Bible reading for a year as we work our way through the entire Bible together. This is day 5. Today we are reading Genesis 12 to 14 and Luke 5. If you go into the description, you will get some links for a quick way to connect to the Bible readings through BibleGateway.com. And there will also be a PDF of the entire Bible readings for the entire year if you want to follow along and check them off as you go. In Genesis now, we're moving into the story of Abraham, and some scholars see this as kind of moving out of the time of myth and legend and into the time of a historical chronological timeline. We can start figuring out within a couple hundred years when Abraham is living. He's tied to a specific town that we have archaeological evidence for. And so this is kind of a new phase of the story of God working with us in the book of Genesis. In Abraham, I want to first talk about this strange story of how Abraham and Sarah moved to Egypt because there's been a famine and life is rough where they were in the land of Canaan, what we would today call Israel. And they go to Egypt. And this is a tough story because we know that Abraham is faithful to God. But when they get to Egypt, Abraham decides to protect himself by turning his wife over as his sister, he claims, to Pharaoh's household. And this is a really hard story for us to hear these days as we are trying to lift up women and try to provide women with greater rights and opportunities. This is something we don't like to hear these days. And to be honest, God didn't like this either, because eventually God made life rough on Pharaoh, and Pharaoh's like, what on earth is going on? Pharaoh finally figures out that Sarah is not Abraham's sister, but his wife. And Pharaoh kicks them all out of Egypt. But Abraham managed to get pretty wealthy by accumulating a bunch of good stuff during this time, and he takes us all with him as they return to the area of Israel. There's a lot of people who think we should just skip the Hebrew Bible because there are these really weird stories like this in there. But if we skip it, then we also miss out on the truth of what it means to be faithful to God and to work with God, to live with God. It also means that we miss out on some of the wisdom of the difficulties of making family life together. And there is still some wisdom for us to gain from these stories. So it is important to read this, even if there are parts that are difficult to understand and things that really don't sound good in our world today. Moving on to Luke chapter 5, we now are seeing where Jesus is accumulating some disciples, some followers. Now, in the Jewish tradition, disciples are students of a rabbi or a teacher, but they're not just, they're not fans like we think of as sport fans that, follow a team around. And it's not even so much like our students in our schools. Perhaps it's like a student who's in a doctoral program working for their PhD at the top levels of our universities, because what a disciple does with a rabbi is that the disciple is trying to learn what the rabbi knows and learn how to do what the rabbi does so that the disciple can become the rabbi eventually. And so this is definitely a higher level of engagement than most of what we think about with a student and a teacher. Most of us as students don't ever think we're going to know as much as the teachers know. So this is a big step up from that. But it's not just knowing what the teacher or rabbi knows, but it's also behaving and doing what the rabbi or teacher does. So Jesus is pulling these people around him. These are people that Jesus has invited to be his disciples, to learn from him and to become like him. Now, this one story here in Luke 5, Jesus gets into the fishing boats with some fishermen, blue-collar tradesmen, doing work with their hands, and they go out and he tells them to throw the nets into the water. And they end up getting so much fish, they have a hard time getting the nets back into the boat, and they are in awe. And when they get back to shore, Jesus is like, come, follow me. And they're like, you got it. They drop everything and they go and follow him. Now, I don't know very many tradesmen that are going to drop all their tools. Their tools are valuable and they've worked hard for those tools. To just drop everything and follow some religious teacher. So clearly, Jesus has built already a serious connection with these people, and there is something that they are seeing in Jesus that makes it worth their while to drop everything and follow. Now, this is a little different from some of the other versions about the disciples following him. And there's another one that really just sounds like Jesus is passing by on the beach and he's like, hey, dudes, you want to come with me? And they drop everything and come. Luke's version with the fishing episode makes it seem like there's a little bit more of a relationship going on, and Jesus has demonstrated a little bit more power or a little bit of something to the fishermen. So it makes a little bit more sense that they would drop their trade and follow him. But Jesus goes on to talk about some strange metaphors. He talks about how there is good stuff in life, and we don't often combine the good stuff with the less good stuff. So we have well-aged wine, and we don't put the good new wine in old wineskins because the old wineskins are probably dried out and they're probably going to burst when we put new wine in there. He also talks about silk cloth, that you don't want to patch old stuff with new cloth. And you don't want to put old cloth as patches on the new stuff. You want to match things together. And he talks about a wedding feast where when the bride and the groom are there, you're going to party, you're going to have a good time, you're going to eat the good food, you're going to drink the good wine. And it's not a time for fasting and prayer and simplicity. You do the good stuff when the whole wedding party is there. And he says, I am the groom, so while I'm here, we're going to party. There will be a time in the future when it will be appropriate to live more simply and to have times of fasting and denial. So my question for myself as I was reading through here is, do I really treat Jesus like the best wine, the best cheese, the best silk? Like time with Jesus is the wedding feast. It's the good stuff. It's the good time. And usually when we have the good stuff, we want to tell others about it. And we're telling people we found the best restaurant, we found the best movie, we found the best cheese, the best wine. And I think a lot of us have not been talking much about Jesus or sharing our experience with Jesus because, I think we haven't always spent enough time with him to really appreciate all the goodness that Jesus is. Are we complacent? Are we busy? Do we kind of shove Jesus off like, oh, when I have time, I'll spend some time with Jesus? I think we are not giving God our full attention. I don't think we're dropping stuff in our lives to spend time with Jesus. And I don't think we're so excited about Jesus that we're going out and we're recommending Jesus on social media. And I know that sounds weird right now, but what are the chances we have to share the good news about what Jesus brings to our lives? And are we missing out on those chances to share that with the people around us? I think that's a real challenge for us as we're reading through here. So today, as you go through all the different activities of your day, I want you to look at each moment, each hour of your day. What have you done? Where has Jesus been with you at that moment? Have you made time for him? Have you thought about Jesus? And have you had any opportunities to share a little bit of your faith journey with someone else in your life today? So just take a look at that and see how that goes. Feel free to reach out and share some comments or text or email me, have a conversation at church, and we'll see you next time.